hey, our short made some money at the film contest in Lansing. It was very surprising, and I still kind of don't believe it, but it was kind of cool. It was a roller coaster of a screening, I will say that, because the first round, so the way that it's broken down, this is for the audience, is like I think 26. There were 26 total teams, which in 2016 there were 44. So that was crazy. But for all the films that didn't make it into like the top 12, which are eligible for like prizes, etc., they screened them kind of as a courtesy. I like to go just because it's always interesting and also entertaining to see some of the other films that didn't quite make the cut. And it was a pretty rambunctious screening for like a bunch of films that weren't really like eligible for prize money. The crowd, like people brought their entire families for them. And our viewing experience was, I will say, a little mixed. We sat behind these like middle-aged women that were like talking loudly and commenting like during almost every single short, like completely unaware of their surroundings. And it was like every comedy show I've ever been to where there's like a middle-aged woman like, oh, like, doesn't that remind you of Drew? Like turning over to her friend while the comedian is speaking and like laughing to her friend about like, oh, that's so true. Like kind of like that. And like, I even did the sort of like, and like nothing. Did not faze them whatsoever. So we eventually just kind of got up and like it was standing room only. There were more people there for like the first round than like the actual top 12 screening. Like the top 12 screening, there were like empty seats.
Suppose that makes sense.
I was kind of flabbergasted by all of it. But our short played. I think we played fourth. My only hope is that we don't go first. I'm like, don't put us first. I never want to go first. But we played fourth, and I'm happy to report back that pretty much every joke landed. Like people were laughing throughout, and like, got the idea. I don't think they connected that it was a sequel to one that we did in 2016.
Yeah, probably not.
But it was enough that like, everything got a laugh. So we tied for audience choice, which the way that they did it this year was, they put up a 1 through 12. You text a number to your favorite. You text your number to the one that you wanted to vote for, and then they tally them up at the end. And there were only 4 of us in the crowd that were like, it was me, my mom, dad, and Chloe. So there were only like 4 of us there. And so that means other people voted for ours as well, which was pretty nice to know. It was funny though, because my mom was having troubles with like she texted the number that they gave and she got back like a sorry like error message. And so she had to redo it. And she's literally, because she's older, she's literally texting like this. And she got hers in at like the very last second. And then they announced that it was a tie. So part of me wonders if her final, like her struggling to get the last vote in might have been the one that made it a tie. Because like it was a buzzer beater.
Or it didn't. Like it's still, they like had already like tallied them or something by then. And if she had gotten it in, it would have
put us over.
I didn't think I forgot that that's how they do that now. You should have like messaged the group, see like if anybody was at the ready to do a couple extra votes.
I did think about that, but I feel like I did it last time, and like they do it within like a minute and a half, so it's pretty quick. Maybe to prevent people from doing that. I don't know. I don't know if they think about it that much.
Nah, I wouldn't be surprised if we were the only people to like think or try that or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, there should be hopefully a version of it coming out soon for you, the audience, to watch at your discretion. But yeah, we it's nice to get some sort of recognition and validation a little bit for something that we made. Like I went to like talk to the people about like, you know, it's like, okay, we tied for this, like we get prize money. I didn't say it, but I was just like, I've never been in this position before, so I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, the other guys are used to the giant oversized checks, so it's like they know where to cash those. But I was like, what do I do?
Did you have an acceptance speech or no? Was that not for the audience choice guys?
No, I did not have an acceptance speech. I probably would have. I probably would have stammered kind of like this and been like, I was. But yeah,
that's cool.
And also one of the shorts
good job.
showed titties, which was wild. A first.
That was wild, or that is wild. I didn't see it.
And it was like the 8mm film. It was like the shot of her on the side, and she like basically like flopped her dress down, and you could like see side profile, and you could see her boobs, and like people in the audience were like, like there was like there were multiple gasps from people in the crowd.
That's great.
Because they don't really give you any sort of like guidelines in terms of content. Like I feel like for the first couple times we did the festival, we didn't swear at all because we weren't sure like, is it okay to do that? Like what is the line of like acceptability for these things? And now it's kind of a free for all, like we don't say slurs or anything like that, but like we'll swear, we'll say, you know.
Yeah.
But there was never any sort of guidelines for that. And apparently I guess if it's tastefully done, then like it's chill.
I guess so, yeah.
So all right, next year.
Yeah.
We're going to do a sequel with titties.
Well, it's funny because so there's that bit during the like Robert Dyer asks you things segment where Ethan's like in the basement and like I'm standing behind him like in the corner in my boxers or whatever.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure we were good, and obviously we are, but like Ethan and Andy were both like, is that gonna be okay if you're like partially nude? And I was like, I mean, I'm not showing my ass or anything. But apparently even if I I'd have known, I'm like back in the corner or whatever, I would have just taken everything off and just had my ass would have been sweet.
Yeah, that would have been great.
But alas.
But alas. Ass.
But ass. Yeah.
But ass. Booty ass.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to ThereWillBeDuds. This is episode 148. And I am your co-host, TJ. And with me as always,
I am Nick.
And as always, we watched a movie. That movie this week is Some Like It Hot from 1959, directed by Billy Wilder. It follows two jazz musicians who witness a gang murder, and go on the run to avoid being killed by the mob boss who did the killings. And they disguise themselves as women and join an all-girl jazz band to hide from the guy. It's a comedy, you know. There's some romance stuff with the lady, and you know, obviously it kind of comes to a head with the gang guys near the end too.
Not just any lady.
Not just any lady. Yeah.
This is Marilyn Monroe.
True.
This is the first movie of hers that I've ever seen. And I will say I didn't think her performance was that bad. That being said, I did not know that this is like kind of a Marlon Brando situation with her with this movie, where I guess I guess a majority of her lines took like 30 plus takes to get.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like apparently one of her earliest lines where she says like, "It's me, sugar." She had to do 47 takes to get that because she kept saying, "Sugar, it's me. It's sugar, me." Like she kept, because I guess Marilyn Monroe this is like a few years before her death, like 4 years before she died. And I think like
something like that.
It was like full on like pill addiction for this movie. So I guess a lot of her lines were just like unbearable to get out of her. Which is kind of a shame because I really like this movie. Like I like watching it. I really enjoyed it. There were a few things that kind of brought it down for me, but otherwise.
I'm just gonna say in her defense, I don't think she's like a bad act. Like I don't think she's known as. I think she's like a good actress. I think maybe she's remembered as being like a sex symbol and stuff. So maybe that presides over everything else, and maybe people assume that she's not good. She's just in movies because she's hot. But like I've always found her to be pretty charming in anything I've seen her in. This included. I thought she's very charming. I mean, it helps that. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. She's very attractive, but like I think
what?
But yeah, I think she had, that's one thing, but I think her character is very sweet and and charming.
Yeah, I agree.
That's up to her performance, which, yeah, that is a bummer. There's parts like where she's, it's only really early on when she's sneaking the booze and she's like,
I don't want you to think I'm a drinker. I can stop anytime I want to, only I don't want to, especially when I'm blue.
We understand.
All the girls drink. It's just that I'm the one that gets caught. Story of my life. I always get the fuzzy end of the lollipop.
Oh, Jesus. That was just like making me think like,
of
like real Marilyn, just kind of bumming me out thinking about that.
I feel like there was another line about suicide that also I felt she said something about it or he said or one of the guys said something about it, and I feel like she had like a little quip about it, but then like learning that that's ultimately how she went, I was like, yeah, there were a few things that I feel like were probably like things that were going on in her personal life that I was like, oh, that's kind of uncomfortable, like in retrospect with all of this.
Yeah.
But all that stuff aside, what was the other Billy Wilder movie we did? Was that Sunset Boulevard? That was him?
Yes, Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
Which is a pretty different vibe from this, too.
Yes. But I will say the technical camera work and the way that this movie looks is also like just as good as that. Like
I really like
some of the, like I think the first like 20 or 30 minutes of this movie I was like, this is incredible. I love this movie. Like all like the mobster stuff, the opening sequence was so like it was
crazy, right?
Yeah. Like there's like seeing like old-timey cars doing like a car chase and then like the cop car like hits another car and like spins out and like the guys crawl off the car and go running. And I'm
they're hanging on the outside of the car when it spins out. Yeah.
I was like, that is an insane stunt that they did. And it looked good. And I was like, holy shit, this is
I love that.
incredible.
That opening scene was amazing. And then their thing gets shot up. There's the coffin starts leaking. They open the lid and then it pans in and you see it's like whiskey bottles. And then it says Chicago 1929 was so good. It was such a good reveal. Like,
because it's like, oh yeah, this is Prohibition era. Like,
That like setting the tone, setting the scene for the movie was really good.
Yes. And I feel like even that opening sequence was also like very funny. Like as soon as those guys started getting shot at, because I feel like at the beginning you're like, okay, this is a funeral procession. Like you don't know that they're mobsters just yet. And then the cops show up and start chasing them, and then the cops just start shooting at them, and you're like, whoa. Like, what is this? 2024 where the cops just open fire for no reason. But then the visual of them like being like, okay, they look up and then like the top of the hearse is lined with guns, and they pull their guns out and start shooting back. I thought visually, I was like, this is incredibly funny. Like, it's so good.
There was a lot of good like visual, and I mean this is end of the 50s. I'm not like, I haven't seen every comedy from these decades around here, but I felt like a lot of this comedy felt ahead of its time in how dumb it was, in a sense where it felt like almost David Zucker-esque. Like there's the part where it might be when they go to the club, like that gets rated at the beginning, maybe. There's like the kid like flipping the coin or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they have like a gun check basically, and then there's like this bin just full of pistols and guns just packed. And a lot, that's like what I mean, kind of like the over the top. I feel like at this time a lot of comedies were still just the screwball, like, witty, which they have a lot of in this, and which I love, and which I thought there was a lot of really good stuff like that in this. But this also has just that kind of dumb physical or like prop humor too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's very good visual gags. Like that scene. I think that's all. The pile of guns, that's near the end when like the mobsters are down in Florida at like the convention.
It might be there too. Yeah, I don't know why I can't think of it. Yeah.
Okay, and then they're kind of like rubbing them all down, being like, all right, are you loaded? Do you have guns? And the mob boss is like, I got nothing. And then they go to the other guy.
It ain't loaded.
Next. What's in here?
My golf clubs, putter, niblick, number 3 iron.
What's this?
My mushy.
It's like it's absurd. It's like an absurdism type joke, because like realistically a mobster wouldn't do that, but it's purely, and it's like for 1959 doing like a absurd visual gag like that. I was like, huh. I feel like that's not very common. Like I feel like that's very trusting of your audience to like have these weird little things that are like, there's like, screwball comedy, zany, and then there's absurd, and
that's a way to put it. Yeah, it's more like absurdist. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, I guess. Like I said, it does have a ton of those, like so many good like turns of phrases and like just back and forth, like a million lines a minute.
Yes.
Like they're or like when they're just like rifling through like like when they go to the guy's office and they're trying to call around, they're trying to find girls to fill in for this jazz band, and they're like, oh, what about her? Oh, she can't. She did this. She can't because of this. She got pregnant, and and then what is it? She's like, she slit her wrists when Valentino died, which I thought was pretty good, if not pretty morbid. But that was based in truth, and like that was one where like I love getting old references like that, because I know that there's stuff in this. There was something later on where they said something and I was like, that's a reference I did not get. But I love watching old movies and understanding references like that. It makes me feel so old, I guess. I don't know. I was like thinking, I'm like not a lot of people my age would probably get that reference to Valentino, but
Right.
But then what was? Oh, it was like in that same scene where Jack Lemmon's like, oh, what what if he basically is kind of formulating the idea of like, oh, well, they need this player and this, then we could put on wigs, and then like, what's he going on about? And Tony Curtis is like,
what's with him? He drinks.
No, but he ain't been eating so good either. He's got an empty stomach and it's gone to his head.
whatever, like that.
Yeah.
A lot of like good lines like that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm looking at the IMDb like quotes, and there's like, yeah, there's so many like, what is that called? Like kind of like switches, like they take turns, like turns of phrase or whatever, and like well, have I got things to tell you? Like, what happened? I'm engaged. Congratulations. Who's the lucky girl? I am. Like, it's kind of, yeah, I think it's like taking normal conversations and then like they kind of subvert what you're expecting, or they'll like insert these well-known like
idioms or whatever.
And then they just kind of turn them on their head a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd really like I love Jack Lemmon. And it's like great seeing him as like a young, like I'm mostly a movie that I watched a ton as a kid was Grumpy Old Men. So I'm mostly familiar with him as an old man. And then he also did like The Odd Couple and stuff with Walter Matthau, who was in Grumpy Old Men too. Did you ever watch that one?
Grumpy Old Men?
Yeah.
No, I've never seen those.
Oh, okay. Well then, I don't know if you're familiar with Walter Matthau then, but
I know that name
because they were like partners for so long. Okay.
I know him from Dennis the Menace.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, he's the neighbor guy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, yep.
I always thought he looked like Saddam Hussein in that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could kind of see that. Yeah. But I just kept thinking in this, like, because I pair those two up in my mind so much.
Mm-hmm.
That like instead of Tony Curtis, if that was Walter Matthau trying to play a lady,
he's just got like those huge cheeks. Just
yeah.
Like,
I'm
like if they,
I don't know, I can't even think of it.
If they got the guy from M.
Peter Lorre.
Peter Lorre to be just like his droopy face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first 30 minutes or so.
That's literally what I was just gonna say. Yeah. The first act I loved. Yeah.
First act, I'm like, this is perfect. The gangster shit, the physical the physical comedy, the car chase, all of this is really great. And then I think the only thing that really kind of like slowed it down for me was like the extended scenes with Marilyn Monroe. Like, I didn't think she was bad in this movie, but I think the romance subplot kind of was a little tedious for me.
There's something. You can finish your thought, but yeah, I can.
I'm gonna get the free space on Duds Bingo, but they probably could have like cut this 20 minutes shorter, and it would have been like perfect. But I feel like some of the stuff just kind of dragged on a little bit. Where the beginning of the movie had this like really, really breakneck pace to it, like the dialogue snappy, and like every like movement, lots of movement. And then they get on the train, and like it's like the extended, like, oh, we're having a party, oh, everybody like cram into this, and it's like that's a good joke, but I think it like kind of goes on for a little bit,
okay,
long, and then go ahead.
I feel mostly the same, although I think I would put where it starts to like drop a little after. Like, I still liked everything on the train. I was still in for it. I liked the meeting with Marilyn, and I thought the party thing was pretty funny. I liked that whole thing, and like how they each got their little alone time with her. But yeah, it's not just that. It's just that, like, I found as it went on, it would indulge in certain plot lines a bit long. Whereas again, that first act, I feel like it was doing a good balance of like keeping the main story going, but you kind of get like, you know, you see them playing the band, you see the gangster stuff, you kind of get like the whole picture of like what's going on. Whereas like later it would be like, yeah, like the romance stuff for a while and then gangster stuff for a while. And it didn't kind of have as good a like back and forth coverage. And so it wasn't any one thing. Maybe the stuff with those two of them on the yacht was like a little long. That would be like the one like that I can really think of that would need to be cut down.
Yes, the yacht scene. Yeah. Like the sort of implication from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, shit, I didn't think about that. Except it's like the opposite, where he takes her out there and he's like, no, I'm not interested in girls. Like, the way he was talking, I'm like, this sounds like he's like realizing that he's gay. I mean, I know that he's playing a character, but like everything he's saying is like, he's like discovering his sexuality right now.
I like that as a subtext where he's like, where like, you know, you think he's doing a bit where he's like, I'm this British playboy son of the Shell executive, and he comes up with this elaborate story.
That summer we spent our vacation at the Grand Canyon. We were standing on the highest ledge watching the sunset when suddenly we got this impulse to kiss. I took off my glasses, she took off her glasses. I took a step toward her, she took a step toward me.
Oh, no!
Yes. 8 hours later, they brought her up by mule.
Again, good joke. Pretty morbid.
Yeah.
But Go ahead.
You go.
I think what dragged on was that he kind of was like, well, try it again. And then they kiss, and he's like, still nothing.
He did it too much, and I was like, what is he going for here? She's like on him, she's throwing herself at him. He's doing this because he wants to bang her, right? Like he put on this whole. He's like, oh, she likes guys with the glasses who read the Wall Street Journal, who are, you know, rich and everything. I'm going to embody that, implying he's gonna try to bang her or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like she's like, let's do it.
This is like
I'm totally
the most
game.
Enthusiastic consent you're going to get.
Yeah, and he's still like, no. Like, does he think if he says, oh yeah, this is working, that she's just gonna stop kissing him and be like, okay, my job's done. That's the only reason I came out here.
Oh,
no, I don't think so. Like that would. Why would he think that? I don't know. I just thought, that whole scenario was weird. That like he's like, no matter how many times I've tried it with girls, it just doesn't work anymore. And it's like, it sounds like you're gay.
Does that mean, does that mean you need to try it with men?
Yeah. Like, I mean, you could almost say that that's kind of what happens with like a reading you could take it the way that how Jack Lemmon reacts to Osgood's like proposal and everything is like he's so excited, and like he's like saying like, oh yeah, you know, I'll tell him and we'll get annulled and stuff, but you could read it as like, did he like, maybe he actually like likes this guy now or something. I don't know.
Like this movie feels like it again ahead of its time in the way that it like kind of deals with like gender norms, because there's like also these scenes where like they dress up as women and they're just like, oh, we're just like getting harassed all the time. Even like, you know, when she gets up onto the train and the guy with the glass, what's his name? They scream his name several times. Beanstalk kind of gives him a pat on the butt. Yeah. And he's kind of like gives him a look at fresh. But yeah, I'm like, oh, interesting. Like usually like, you know, you think movies from like the 40s and the 50s it's like women do this and men do this, and basically like all these movies, like you sort of like you kiss her until she wants to kiss you back, and then it's romance. But it's like, you know, it's sort of played that way where basically a guy just like relentlessly pursues a woman until she relents, and then that's like the hallmark of any good romance in these movies. And I feel like this movie kind of challenges that a little bit, and then also like challenges like gender norms where like you said, like Jack Lemmon kind of is like, you know, there's like that scene with like the maracas, and he's like reminiscing about this dance that he had with this guy, and Tony Curtis is like trying to like talk him out of it, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. And he's like, oh, well, why not? Like, why can't we do this? And
will you stop treating me like a child? I'm not stupid. I know there's a problem.
I'll say there is.
His mother. We need her approval. But I'm not worried because I don't smoke.
Jerry, there's another problem.
Like what?
Like, what are you going to do on your honeymoon?
We've been discussing that. He wants to go to the Riviera, but I kind of lean towards Niagara Falls.
And then he basically tries to say everything he can without explicitly saying you can't because like gay marriage is illegal or wrong. Like they never really cross that line. And I'm guessing it's because of like Hays Code stuff, which apparently, I mean, on the Wikipedia it says that it was produced without the approval from like the production code. But also, I guess the production code like wasn't as prevalent. Like I think it was kind of waning in the late 50s. Like I think.
Yeah, that sounds like I don't think
like
Hayes
I think
was
the
as big of a thing
McCarthyism
then.
stuff was, I don't know, kind of
On its way out.
cooling off. But this is also like right before the Cold War, so maybe who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't care about movies as much as, you know, Cuba.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's some other I like there was a couple good moments near the end too that I really liked, sort of on that front, or just where I think it's where they're kind of on their they're being chased by the people at the end, and they're trying to get out to the boat. He's called Osgood, and he's like, all right, he's got the boat ready for us, let's go. And then Tony Curtis sees Marilyn Monroe singing I'm Through with Love.
Yeah.
And then she's like crying or whatever. And then he goes up to her and he says,
Hey, that's no dame.
None of that, sugar. No guy is worth it.
I thought that was really sweet, and like really like it does a good job of like, I guess because I think that's kind of his arc, because he's a kind of a womanizer or whatever, and yeah, he lies to her to get in her pants, kind of, I guess, except he doesn't want to. Maybe I guess maybe you could read that as him. Maybe that's why he's so resistant, is because he knows he's lying to her, maybe. And he's like, I don't want to, like, yeah, I'm trying to woo this girl, but I feel shitty about, you know, sleeping with her under false pretenses, maybe.
Sure.
And then like those things at the end where he's like, she gets on the boat with him and he's still trying to like convince her to stay back, and I remember what he says to her there, but I was like, oh, okay. It's doing a good job of kind of redeeming him in that way. And yeah. And then you get like that and I did know about the ending, because it's like a pretty famous ending, but I do love that ending scene.
It is absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it is. It's an iconic ending for a reason.
Well, I have a terrible past. For 3 years now, I've been living with a saxophone player.
I forgive you.
I can never have children.
We can adopt some.
But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that like out of context.
Yeah.
Like I feel like every like BreadTube YouTube analysis video essay about like queer representation in cinema has used that clip because it's again it feels very like ahead of its time or it makes me think of I think it's the bus driver in Mrs. Doubtfire that like I think there's like a scene where like the bus driver falls in love with Mrs. Doubtfire or something. There's some sort of scene.
I mean, that is kind of like a trope at this point. Like I kept thinking like, oh, that he's the Terry Crews in this one because Terry Crews is that character in White Chicks. Yeah. So I'm just seeing when they're at the doing the dance, he gets on the piano and does a 1,000 miles. Yes. But yeah, I think there's even a scene in Mrs. Doubtfire where like Robin Williams is basically like, I'm a man in drag, and I feel like even the bus driver is just like, okay. Yeah.
You know. But again, for a movie from the 50s to have it end that way where basically they're just like, he's like, I don't care if you're a man. And he kind of has a like, it's not like a gay voice, if you will, but he kind of has a more like effeminate tone of voice where he's like, that's okay, I don't care. You know, like again, yeah, it's just it's crazy that a movie from this time period did all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently there was I guess like a screening that they did where a lot of the audience had like a really bad reaction and a bunch of people like walked out. And
at the end or just at some point?
I think just probably throughout the entire movie. I would imagine people probably found like, oh, men dressing up as women, this is objectionable. And I guess Jack Lemmon asked Billy Wilder if what he was gonna do, like if he was gonna cut anything. And Billy Wilder said nothing. This is a very funny movie and I believe in it just as it is. Maybe this is the wrong neighborhood in which to have shown it. At any rate, I don't panic over one preview. It's a hell of a movie. And I love when a director like that is just like, no, I'm confident that this is good and I don't need to change anything.
Yeah.
And like, it's like the Back to the Future. Like, no, you guys aren't ready for this one, but your kids are going to love it. Like that sort of thing where like just having that sort of knowledge of like, no, I'm making something that's special and it's good. And maybe you guys aren't ready for it, but it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not surprising with a director like him, but it's good when, you know, stands by his work and doesn't, you can think of some, you know, auteurs, I think are all kind of like that. Like they're artists. They know what they do. They're not doing it to like, you know, appease any sort of particular sentiment. They're making what they want to make and what they think is good and stuff. And
yeah, I'm reading a book on Stanley Kubrick right now, and he is like probably one of the worst offenders of like auteur syndrome. But it's like he makes it work, but also reading about
he's on the auteur spectrum.
he 100%
is. Speaking of, that was something else about Tony Curtis's junior character, that's what he called himself, is like, I was like, what the fuck is that accent that he's doing? It was kind of like a weird Cary Grant. But then like I just thought like the way that he was acting like on the beach, and then when he picks up that bucket of shells and he's like, I've been collecting shells. It's my hobby. And I'm like, he just seems like autistic. Is that like what he thinks she's going to be into?
I only come ashore twice a day when the tide goes out.
Oh.
It's on account of these shells. That's my hobby.
You collect shells?
Yes, so did my father and my grandfather. You might say we had a passion for shells.
Well, it's funny that you say that because there's an IMDb trivia bit here where Tony Curtis has said that he asked Billy Wilder if he could imitate Cary Grant for his stint as the millionaire in the movie. Wilder liked it, and they shot it that way. apparently Grant saw the parody of himself and stated jokingly, "I don't talk like that." So,
Awesome.
very, very good ears that is exactly what he was going
Hell yeah,
for.
dude.
Because I was like, it's kind of this weird sort of British accent. Like he's doing a vampire's kiss.
The transatlantic kind of thing.
Yeah.
That Cary Grant did a lot.
It's like a very transitional accent from like English to like our English, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the real
sweet.
reason he was like collecting shells is so he could be like, you know, Shell, the company that my father owns. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
And then later when they're like, oh, you'll forget about him. And she's like, how can I? There's a Shell gas station on every corner.
That was very good. And I also loved like in their like breakup phone call where he's like, you know, I'm sorry that this is happening. I'm sorry that I have to leave. And she's like, well, no, think about it. This is good. This is good, like insider trading. Now I'm gonna go put all my money on like this other oil company or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's very funny that like Marilyn Monroe is just like, yeah, insider trading.
I also noted he kind of had an Arthur Miller vibe about him, so it is fitting that she would be into that because she was married to Arthur Miller.
Yeah. Apparently, also in the IMDb trivia is like, I guess Arthur Miller would like come to set and try to give advice on it, and I guess everyone was like very annoyed that this kept happening.
Like on the script or whatever, or
I think so. Just like he would show up on set and I think would try to like offer advice or input on the stuff. And again, you have that auteur in Billy Wilder who's probably like, can you get this guy out of here, please?
But also like you could see from like that's Arthur Miller too. He's no
the guy who wrote The Crucible is here. Like,
yeah.
But also, I don't know if screwball comedies or romantic comedies of this time period are really like in his lane.
Yeah, I mean, true. I just mean he's not just some spring chicken who thinks he's hot shit. At least he's kind of
right.
Not that I'm saying that he should have been doing that, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's again because I'm reading this Kubrick book, very similar with like Lolita and Nabokov, where like Kubrick had Nabokov like write a screenplay for the whole movie. And like Nabokov was like, yeah, this is going great. I wrote a screenplay. Stanley says he likes it. And then he gets to the screening. And like, I think maybe 10% of Nabokov's work is like what resulted in. And it's like, he didn't know it until he got to the screening and was like, oh. But that would have been great if Arthur Miller showed up and was like giving all of these pointers and like, oh, she should say this, or like, oh, maybe this should happen. And they're like, yeah, good stuff, Arthur. Totally.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not doing any of that.
Yeah, we're not doing any of this shit. Another thing, like I mentioned, I still enjoyed the stuff on the train with like you get, a little bit of alone time with Jerry and Sugar, and then the party starts, and then Joe and Sugar have a little bit of alone time. So it's like, oh, is this going to be like a competing sort of?
Yeah.
They both want the girl who's gonna come out on top or whatever. But then like it's almost like Tony Curtis isn't interested in her until they have their little, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's like, oh, he connects with her like personally because they like had a moment and he got to talk to her or whatever. And because then they like arrive in Florida, and then he's like, okay, all right, I'm gonna put on this millionaire persona, and try to woo her or whatever. And Jack Lemmon's still kind of like hanging out with her, like he goes swimming with them and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, because like it's like they're coming out of the water. I'm like, oh man, like he's got like he is such like he's like a smaller dude, but he has such like man shoulders and arms. And then Marilyn Monroe comments on that too. But he has a good excuse that he's like, oh, looking around that bass, that cello or whatever. I forget what they call it. What do they call it? The
something fiddle.
Yeah, something.
Not a bull fiddle.
Bull fiddle. Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in a rockabilly band. I know some of these terms.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, yeah, Tony Curtis basically is just like, he does like a, why I oughta like.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you, and probably not kill you, but he's like, he basically just tells Jack Lemmon like, no, she's mine, and then that whole like competition is kind of over there, which I thought was a little strange, and also I'm like, wait, is that their relationship? Is he just like, is he just like a bully to Jack Lemmon or something? I don't know. That's the only time you really see it. Otherwise, they seem kind of like on equal. Like Tony Curtis is definitely like the one in charge, but they seem more like on equal footing as far as like, just their whole like, the path they go on and all that, like decision making and stuff.
I kind of like that they did away with the competition between the two. I think it made the movie much more interesting in that way, because I feel like that would be like the obvious thing, where it's like they're both dressed up like women, they're both like trying to like not get themselves exposed as being like a real man, because I feel like there's a few scenes where like they their faces get like really close. And it's like they're I think there's even like that scene where they're like laying in bed together, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're so cold," and like he lays down, he's like, "I'm a girl, like just like trying to like keep your act together."
Yeah.
But it is funny, like with that Playboy millionaire scene where I'm gonna get him. Jack Lemmon is the one that's like swimming with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that it's almost like he's not even romantically trying to pursue her. He's just like straight up having a good time.
It might be, yeah. Maybe that.
Where
and then, like I said, with like Osgood and him, like actually like enjoying his night with him and stuff.
Yeah, because yeah, up until that point, he's like, okay, well, let's go down to the beach, and then you're like, oh, okay, he's basically like
check out the girls and
yeah. But he's like out there just like having fun with them. Like they're like throwing that ball around, and he kind of does the like, oh, you're a shell millionaire, like almost like kind of exposing him, being like, oh God, what does he say? He's like, he kind of hits him with like, some of those questions like, where are you from? Oh, who's your dad? Like basically like kind of calling his bluff a little bit. But then, yeah, like after that, it's just sort of like, okay, well, I'm pursuing her, and Jack Lemmon's just like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
like he's like okay with not pursuing her anymore, and then yeah, he goes dancing with Osgood. I did like the transitions from like them out on the yacht where they're like kind of like, oh, that didn't work, kiss me again, and then it cuts over to them and they're like salsa dancing, and I laughed when Osgood was like, you keep leading, because it's like that's his impulse. He's
right,
like, well, as a man, that's how you dance.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe there he learns to let someone else take charge.
Yeah, I guess I like that interpretation. That does go more in line with like what I was saying with him. Like maybe actually, I don't know. I don't want to full on say that like, oh, he's gay by the end, because there's still some pushback or something, or is that him just wanting to like fess up to Osgood? I don't know. But that goes in line with me, like, oh, he actually like had a good time with him. He's like kind of actually excited to be marrying him. Maybe that like maybe that is his arc, is like he starts maybe being interested in her, but then he's just like he is like friends with them and stuff, and maybe he likes being a girl, because like later when after he is like doing the maracas and like telling him about their engagement and stuff, And Tony Curtis does the reverse of the thing where he's like, you're a boy. Keep telling yourself you're a boy. And then he's like, I'm a boy. I'm a boy. Oh boy, I'm a boy. And he's like disappointed. I don't know. Like, was this like that forward thinking? Was it just kind of being more funny with the turns of phrase and stuff? I don't know. But I do like that. I think what I was more getting at is like, I just felt like it was a weirdly abrupt end to the competition.
Yeah.
Unless it was like what you said, where it was just like he was just being friendly or whatever. But no, he wasn't, because he was still kind of pushing back at that point. Like he was, when they get into that confrontation and Tony Curtis like kind of, he like grabs him by the neck or whatever. And I don't remember what he says exactly, but he's like, I'm going to do this and you're going to, distract Osgood. And he's like, oh, okay, fine. Like he relents. But up until that point, he's still kind of like, hey, I'm, who says that you get dibs or whatever.
Dibs, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's not like a huge thing. I just felt like that kind of turn and again, like making Joe seem like kind of a bully or whatever.
Yeah. He's definitely like the dominant one, like in that relationship.
Yeah.
There was one shot that I thought was really, really cool, and I'm wondering if you also took note of this. I'm still not entirely sure how they pulled this off, but there's a scene when the two of them realize that the Chicago gangsters are there, and there's this really cool shot where she has a little hand mirror.
Oh,
she
yeah.
holds it up.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah.
And you look because it's like, that's not how a mirror would really work, but they did some sort of trick where you could see perfectly the gangsters like standing at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really, really cool edit or camera trick, however they did that.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have anything to add to it, but yeah, I agree. That was I did like that moment.
Cause like I'm looking at an image of it. It looks like, cause I think, in modern editing technique, I think you just like
Green
mask out that section. But it's like, you can't do that like in the 50s. So however they edited that was, I don't know. It was really cool though.
Yeah. Yeah, because it definitely looks like superimposed to some degree. And then you can still see like the shine on his eye too.
Yeah,
like from the reflection. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that he's got like he always wears the spats, and there's even like I don't remember what they ask, if they're like, you wearing spats? Of course I'm wearing spats. I always wear spats. Or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good visual cue too, because early on, like the first thing you see at the speakeasy is him kind of walk in and hit that dude, and he spills his drink on his shoes. And so it's like, that's the first thing that you see of Spats is his spats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then later when they show up to the conference or whatever in Florida, which like, do they just have like an open gangster conference? Like, is that okay? How do they?
I don't know.
I'm just, it's like, oh yeah, no, sorry, we're booked. The gangsters are here. The bootleggers are here for their annual crime conference, I guess.
Well, I think it's like how all that like mafia stuff happened, where like a lot
it's
of
like Italian appreciation or whatever.
It was like Italian Brotherhood or something like that.
Yeah.
But stuff like, I don't know, I feel like you see it in, they do it in the Departed too, where like Martin Sheen meets up with Jack Nicholson like under the bridge or whatever, and it's like, Martin Sheen knows that he's a criminal, and Jack Nicholson knows that he's a criminal, but it's like, but I gotta catch you, So I think it could be one of those things, because that one cop from earlier in the movie that busted the speakeasy is like down there, and he talks to Spats a little bit. So it's like he's there, so like he knows that that's going on, but like he can't just stop them if they're just having a meeting for the Italian Brotherhood. You know, that's completely innocent. You know,
right? It's like they know the law just as well as the cops do, and they know like how to get around certain things and be like they kind of have like this. I mean, it's a cat and mouse thing, but they have a way of talking to each other. Or it's like it's like Tony talking to the feds in The Sopranos, or like there's like they get sandwiches together sometimes, and it's just like or like Heat with Pacino and De Niro.
Yeah,
almost.
sure, yeah. You can't just arrest them because you know you might know they are, but if you don't have evidence or whatever, you don't catch them red-handed.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, evidence like a giant empty cake with the guy like they did that. They do the for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, and they just blow them away, which I was kind of surprised with like some of the violence in this movie for like kind of a romantic comedy with Marilyn Monroe. It gets pretty bloody with like execution scenes. And but I just thought that was funny that like he pops out of the cake, blows all those guys away, and then leaves, and then the cop shows up, and it's almost like just missed ya. Like, wait, this isn't enough to arrest him?
Yeah.
Like, he just unloaded a Tommy gun at, like, a resort with, like an all-women jazz band, like, in the next room over, and, like, what you didn't think anyone was gonna hear, like, like... It was just funny that it came in, and it was just like,
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was thinking this, too. But I'll have to give credit to Kalia for saying that, like, if they did a modern recast, that William H. Macy would be Osgood. And then that led me to think, oh yeah, we've done it once or twice, but like I always forget to. But I always like the idea of doing like modern recasts of these movies.
William H. Macy would be a very, very good Osgood. He's kind of got that wide mouth too.
Yeah.
And just like, kind of like that, almost like everyman schmuck kind of personality.
Look,
trying to think of.
And then I said Kevin Hart and The Rock for Joe and Jerry.
Yeah, all right. I feel like John Hamm would be a good Spats. I feel like he could kind of play that character well. I'm just going based on guys that kind of look a little bit similar. Maybe the guy at the end with like the hearing aid. Maybe that could have been.
That was another good gag. Yeah, that was another thing that made me think like it's funny because it's just like it's like a character trait like that feels so modern comedy. I guess to just like, oh, this guy just has a hearing aid, and that's just going to be like a little thing that we're going to add to the scene just for fun because it's kind of fun.
But he could be Dave Bautista.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. I hadn't really thought beyond that.
Thought about it beyond William H. Macy.
Marilyn Monroe's got to be like. I mean, I just feel like there aren't like people like Marilyn Monroe anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Is there like a, sex? Not that it has to be that, it could be, they don't even have to be playing like, the characters, right? They're not playing the actors playing the characters. It's,
right. Yeah, like if it was made now, like Timothy Chalamet would be one of the musicians.
Ooh, maybe he would definitely be Jack Lemmon's then, the more twink one of the two.
It's like, actually, this clothing is far more comfortable than anything else I've ever worn. I'm gonna wear dresses all the time now.
Tom Holland can be
Tom Holland,
and then Zendaya could be Marilyn Monroe's character.
Oh my god. Oh no.
Something like that.
Directed by Spike Lee.
Oh. Jesus.
He just can't help himself. He loves redoing classics.
Yeah.
Did you see that he's doing
High and Low?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
We'll have to put that one in the dud whenever that one comes out.
Preemptively, yeah.
I think Ice Spice is gonna be in it.
Ugh. Yeah,
So-
maybe. Wait, is she really?
That's what I've heard.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, there we go. Marilyn Monroe is Taylor Swift. We'll just have her. We'll throw her in there. She's a great actress.
Okay, yeah.
She probably memorize her lines better.
Yeah, maybe.
So yeah, like I said, really early on, I was locked in. I really enjoyed the first, 30 to 40 minutes. I'll include the stuff on the train too. I think the train stuff was
You don't have to.
was pretty good. But I think the train stuff started out good, and then I think that's kind of when things started to drag a little bit. Scenes kind of played out, I guess, a little bit longer, where I got used to this very, very quick pace, very snappy, speed at which the movie kind of chugged along. And then I think once it got into the main plot, it dragged a little bit for me. The mobster stuff at the end was really good. I thought they wrapped it up very, very neatly. That last line is perfect. It's iconic for a reason. It's great. It's like the epitome of like that type of back and forth, like dialogue that these movies are like known for. It's like this. I feel like this movie is like the pinnacle of that. There are probably other movies that are just as good, but this is like so insanely written.
Pretty snappy. Yeah.
Pretty snappy. So yeah, I think all in all, it probably could have been maybe 20 minutes shorter, maybe cut some of those scenes down. The like, keep kissing me until I feel romance again. I think those scenes kind of dragged on a little bit. But also I feel like this movie was pretty ahead of its time regarding like sex and gender norms and like all these sort of taboo things at the time. I think this movie like very expertly like played to those ideas and still managed to get it made with like kind of like the Hays Code stuff going around. And there's like there's a reason that it's like one of the greats. So I think I'm like between a strong 7 and a low 8. I think I'm gonna go strong 7. That's where I'm at with this one.
Okay.
Pretty good. Pretty funny. Pretty entertaining.
Yeah. I more or less feel pretty similar. But I think either I liked the other stuff more, or those longer kind of draggy scenes just brought it down a little less for me, because I'm more solidly in an 8 is what I settled on. But yeah, if it was all like that first act, easy 9 at least.
Yeah, that I was like, this is a 9. Like based on those first like 20-30 minutes, I'm like, this is insane. This car chase and the gunfight and the speakeasy and like the boom, bada boom, bada boom. I was like, this is a 9. But yeah.
But yeah, so good. I loved all the dialogue. Characters were really fun. I really think the only scene that I can really think of where I was really feeling that, in particular, was the scene on the yacht. And then there was like sequences, like I said, kind of longer sequences where I just felt like I wish that it was broken up more, kind of. Pace, like it was able to switch between. I don't know. Just have that pace that the first act had a little bit more. And maybe it's because like that was so good that like it made the rest of it like more noticeable, that it wasn't quite as quick. But still really good. Obviously, yeah, really liked it. An 8.
Nice.
It's like nobody's perfect, right? So
it's right there. So I think last episode I said that I was watching Fallout, and I went against my better judgment, and I guess you could say we binged it. We didn't do it all in one sitting, but we did it pretty quickly. We finished the Amazon Prime Fallout series yesterday, and it was pretty good. Like, I think in terms of like story, it didn't really like reinvent the wheel in terms of like story beats and like character arcs. Like, I feel like all of that kind of stuff was like pretty basic storytelling. But I think the performances of the characters, especially like Kyle MacLachlan, is great. I love seeing him in stuff. Mm-hmm. The lead was pretty good. I forget her name, but she kind of plays the
Ella Purnell. That's her character.
Ella Purnell. She was pretty good.
I realized she was one of the lead voices in Arcane.
Oh, okay.
She voiced Jinx.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Walton Goggins, it's his show, really.
Yeah.
Like, Walton Goggins really steals the whole thing. But, you know, it's like, it's kind of a basic story, but in terms of like video game adaptations to TV shows, it's folks, they keep doing it. They keep making pretty good video game adaptations for TV shows that, you know, I from the handful of hours of Fallout games that I've played, there were like little Easter eggs and bits that I like. Oh yeah, hey, I did the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, like, oh, that's the code breaking game, like on one of the computers.
Oh, cool.
You know, that kind of thing. I was like, oh, I know that one.
Yeah.
So it already got picked up for a second season. And I think I can play probably Fallout 3 or New Vegas in the 2 years or so that it's gonna take. So hopefully I'll be able to do that. And then the other thing I watched, have you heard of the Octopus Murders? Do you know what that is?
Sounds vaguely familiar. I feel like if you tell me, maybe I'll.
It's
remember.
So it's a newer-ish documentary 4-part series on Netflix that I watched. But it's about this journalist from the 90s, Danny Casolaro, who was basically investigating some. It sounds so crazy. So I guess in the 80s, the Justice Department of the United States commissioned this company to make this software that eventually, you know, was used to, of course, like spy on people, because, you know. What a surprise, the government's spying on you. But basically, like, the government then, like, stole the software and didn't pay this company the millions of dollars that they said that they would, and the company goes bankrupt. And so this independent journalist kind of starts, like, this is weird that this happened. And he starts investigating, and it takes him, like, they call it the Octopus Murders because it's like...
It was an octopus.
It was an octopus. It was like a Red Wings... Like a Red Wings game from the early 2000s when they would just huck octopuses onto the ice. But basically it turns into a full-on government conspiracy. Like Reagan is involved, like Jimmy Carter, Iran-Contra, like selling weapons, all this kind of shit. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't know how you kind of watch that and then are a sane person afterwards. Like, I mean, I guess I already have a pretty decent distrust in, like, the federal government and, like, the CIA and the FBI. So none of it was, like, shocking revelations. But it's just like, yeah, I could see how this could drive people crazy watching it. But,
yeah,
it was really well done. It was interesting. Yeah, it was a fun little documentary about how the government has essentially just been, like, doing evil shit and doing regime changes all over the world. And selling weapons, and no one will ever believe you, and no one will ever be held responsible. It was great. So definitely, definitely recommend the Octopus Murders. And then, yeah, Civil War, Alex Garland's new movie.
Yeah, I want to see this one.
I saw it in IMAX. I recommend seeing it. I did. And as soon as we got done in IMAX, I was kicking myself for not seeing Oppenheimer in IMAX because Civil War in IMAX rocked. It was it was such a good experience. I mean, the movie itself was not like super uplifting, so that wasn't like a good experience.
Yeah,
like it wasn't a feel good thing, but
that's usually how his stuff is.
Yeah,
makes you kind of feel a little icky no matter what. Yeah,
but go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think I kind of got Oppenheimer. I think that got me that I got bit by the IMAX bug with that, because I think prior to that I had seen. I remember seeing one when I was like in like middle school. It was like right when it was like coming out, or at least I think it was new. And then I saw like The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises.
Dark Knight would have been cool.
It was really cool. And those might have been it. Those like literally those three. And then last year I saw 3 in IMAX, so I doubled my IMAX time.
Nice.
And it was Oppenheimer, Stop Making Sense, and then Godzilla -1.
Oh, okay.
All pretty cool.
Yeah, I think maybe like when I was a kid, we might have gone to like a field trip to see like
that's probably what it was for me. Yeah,
like some like a not like a Planet Earth, but like a nature documentary.
Yep.
Where,
mine was Deep Sea 3D. I remember, and it was narrated by Johnny Depp.
I wonder if that's the one that I saw too. Maybe. Probably was. And then I think I saw like Pacific Rim in IMAX and like D-Box, and when that shit was going on. I remember seeing the 2014 Godzilla in D-Box. I was like, maybe that was in IMAX too. So maybe. I think it was D-Box. It was
wild.
It was so silly. Yeah, it was like Pacific Rim, where just like the seats like moving around and shit.
Yeah, the new one with that is 4DX, and I've heard it's nuts. And I really wanted to go see Godzilla Kong: The New Empire in that. It's like I'll see it normal at so I can see it at local theater. Blur that out. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So I can see it normal, and then just like see it in 4DX, and just be there along for the ride.
Achieve ego death. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Civil War was, I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, good. That's good. Yeah.
My only real critiques were that I feel like Kirsten Dunst's performance was kind of wooden, and maybe that's just like because her character is kind of like, her character's just like, I've seen some shit and I'm sort of numb to everything, so she's very much like kind of like a cynical realist about it.
Yeah.
And the nature of the Civil War is, it's not like there's no like info dump of like,
it's just there is a civil war going on.
You're just in the middle of it. Okay. You're following these photographers. This is what's going on. And I guess, I don't know, I guess that was like a point of contention for a lot of people, that like they're like, he's being a centrist and he's not like, but there's like a reference in this movie of like the Antifa massacre. Like it's kind of mentioned in passing, and just hearing the word Antifa said by a character, I was like, ugh. I was like, I don't want any like current modern day culture that war.
Dates it.
Like, yeah, I don't want any of that shit.
Yeah.
Like, because that instantly like makes it like, I don't know, not like less like, but I don't know. Any sort of injection of like current day politics, I think
I know what you mean,
to this movie's detriment. Like the fact, I don't think it was like a centrist thing at all. I think it was like an interesting way of doing it, where because like that was another thing where they're like, why are Texas and California aligned? They would never agree on anything. Well, it's like, well, in this world, they did. And like, just who gives a shit?
Yeah, I saw an interview with him where he said like, it could have been set anywhere. I just set it in America. Like, okay, yeah, I like that, especially just with how, you know, just contentious whatever cultural war shit is now. Like, that's good to hear that like they don't necessarily explain too much, or that it is just kind of like Because it's about the characters, right? I never took it as like, you hear that and I think generally people are like, oh, it's going to be really like topical and whatever. But like knowing Alex Garland, I hope that it's more just about, you know, the people that you're following as opposed to like making some big like political statement or whatever.
Yes, yeah. I'm so glad that it didn't try to inject any of like current politics into that at all. Some very like stunning visuals, some very like intense visuals. Mm-hmm. Like there's like a scene where a guy gets necklaced. Do you know what that is?
Rope around the neck and like hung or something, or
it's so much worse than that.
Okay.
This is something that they would do in like apartheid South Africa, where they would take a tire and put it over you, like over your shoulders.
Okay.
Douse it in gasoline and then set you on fire.
Oh shit.
like
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So there's, oh man, I mean it's pretty brief, but yeah, there's some pretty intense like war crime looking stuff that happens. Like it's very realistic looking, and some of it's like very, very hard to look at. So yeah, I don't know. I think there was like an interview with Alex Garland where he was talking about like anti-war movies. He's like, Apocalypse Now, it's great. Is it an anti-war movie? Because there's like a certain like seduction, like sexiness to that movie, etc. And like, I don't know. He was kind of talking about like what makes it, you know, like I feel like Come and See is kind of like the what people
anti-war movie. Yeah,
that is like
yeah.
And so I think Alex Garland has explicitly said that that's kind of like. He wants this to sort of be like an anti-war movie, like doesn't glorify it at all. Mm-hmm. And I personally, I think he achieved it. I think on Letterboxd I went with 4 stars. You know, could be bumped up on another viewing, but also like, I don't know, maybe this is dumb to say, but like after seeing it in IMAX, I almost like don't want to see it again because nothing will compare to that experience of just like sitting there with like their like 7.2 surround sound system. Cause like there's a lot of gunfire and like, you know, like near the end, it's like there's a shitload of like war action like sequences. And it was loud. You could just hear just like shit going on around you. And it was, I'm like, nothing is ever gonna come close to that experience.
Yeah.
Also, there was, it was like basically a cheat code for me, but there was a Sturgill Simpson needle drop that like made me shed a tear, and I was like, God damn it, this shouldn't work on me, but it does. It's probably like my favorite Sturgill Simpson song, also. So like the fact that it was like my favorite song of his used in the movie. In the scene that they use it in, I was like, son of a bitch. It was very affecting. So, yeah, I highly recommend go see Civil War. See it in IMAX if you can, because it's awesome.
I'll try. I'll at least see it in theaters. I'll try.
Yeah.
I do want to.
So yeah, all 3 new things that I watched. So
yeah.
Huh? Now I have nothing to watch again.
I watched a new thing too. I was in bed last night and I was kind of bed earlier than I usually am. So I was like, I'll watch something. I was planning on watching a movie, but I was like on Letterboxd before, not necessarily looking for something to watch, but I was just, no, I was going to check one of my lists. Yes, I was going to check my watch list. That's why I was on it. And then I saw somebody rated this thing, Baby Reindeer. Like a YouTuber that I follow, they rated it a 4.5 star, and I was like, not that I always check out like everything that people rate highly, but I was like, it just kind of piqued my interest. The poster looked interesting. I haven't heard of this before, and I saw, oh, it's a TV show. Oh, it's on Netflix. Okay, I'll check that out. 7 episodes. Okay, I watched the entire thing in bed. I was up till like I think 2:30 was when I finished it.
Nice. Like you watched it in one sitting, essentially?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And it's not like some of the episodes are like only like a half an hour, but then some of them are 50 minutes. So I think that's like about the range. But yeah, it was really, really good. I really liked it. It was obviously compelling. It's about this Scottish comedian who he's not like he's an aspiring comedian, we'll say. He's a comedian like we're filmmakers and podcasters.
Okay.
And he works at a bar, and this lady comes in, she's like sad, she's crying, and he's like, "Oh, do you want a drink? Do you want something?" She's like, "Oh, I don't have any money." And then he's like, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And she's like, "I can't afford it." And he's like, "It's on the house." And he gets her a cup of tea. And like that spurs on this I think it ends up being like a couple years long like stalking obsession where she just stalks him relentlessly. And it's like he narrates it and stuff. The guy who plays the lead is the writer and creator of the show, and also this is autobiographical. This actually happened to him. And it is fucking crazy. It's nuts. But it's also really good. Like the fact that like there's a lot of really heavy personal like sexual assault stuff in it that he kind of goes through. Very like personal, like his voice, because like again he narrates it, so he like talks about like how he's feeling and everything. And I think like having that context of knowing that this is like the actual guy playing this, going through these very hard, like tough memories that he actually had, like makes it more intense. There's a scene or two in like the last episode that like made me tear up. That's pretty good. There is like a really long monologue near the end of episode 6 where apparently it's on. I don't know if it's, again, if it's based on a true story or whatever. So I don't know if it's still online or whatever, but there was part of me where I was like, this feels a little staged. Like there's some moments where I'm like, and I know every biography, every biopic, it's dramatic effect, so some stuff is, you gotta
zhuzh it up a little bit for TV audiences kind of thing.
So that was kind of in the back of my head, but it was still a really good scene regardless of whether that was like real or not. It's kind of where he basically just like does this big trauma dump and talks about like why he quote unquote like why he like allowed himself to be stalked and harassed and everything. And but yeah, like despite dealing with these like really heavy subjects, it's also very consistently funny. Like, just left and right. Like there's jokes like that he will make about his situation sometimes, or just, normal like character banter, normal sitcom-y comedy stuff. So it's a very interesting like genre balance, I guess, where there's some kind of like hard to watch scenes, and yet maybe not right after but in the same episode there could be some funny, lighthearted, jokey stuff, and the guy does a good job. I'm sure it's probably easy for him to get emotional, but there's a lot of like heavy scenes for him where he's got to like kind of break down and cry, and he's pretty good. The girl that plays his stalker is also very good. I think like it's all around like pretty solid cast.
Damn.
But
I've never, and this is like a new show. I've never heard of this. Like there's no, usually I see like on Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or something, I'll see some sort of like, oh, hey, this new show on Netflix. Like usually Netflix is pretty good about like getting their shit in your feed about like new stuff they have coming out. But yeah, I saw that you logged this on Letterboxd, and I was like, interesting. Like I figured this was like a show that came out a few years ago, but no, this is a new thing. I've never heard of this. I think. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, me either. Literally, like I got on Letterboxd, I was like, oh, that looks like an interesting poster. Went to it and went to the page, and it was at a 4.2. on Letterboxd, and I saw like I looked at some of the reviews, and they were like, "This is like," there were people saying like this. It's like shocking that like this isn't being like seen by more people. Like,
yeah,
there were people like who had seen it were saying like, why isn't this more like popular than it is? And yeah, I literally had not heard about it, saw that, and I was like, all right, sure, I'll check it out, and then watched the whole
in
thing
a single night.
yeah. So I think it was like that rate. You know, if I see something that's like new, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's short. It's got like, that's a really good rating for Letterboxd. I'm like, okay, all right. And then I think what tipped it for me is it was directed by the people that did The End of the Fucking World, which I really, really liked. Which I want to say I may have watched the first season of that show in one sitting too. That one's a fiction. Familiar. It might be based on like a comic book or something like that. But it's very different, but you can see the kind of the directorial flair carry over into this one. But that one's a lot more. I think they were a good pick because there is a lot of like, I don't think quite as heavy scenes in that. Also, it's fictional, so it doesn't carry that kind of emotional weight either. But that is also a show that is like very funny, but also pretty serious too. But yeah, that one's about a teenager who's a serial killer, and this girl that like falls in love with him, but he like just wants to kill her. But then
good.
He's kind of also, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty funny. And yeah. Oh yeah. And then I went on Netflix, and again, I hadn't heard of it, but when I went to it, it said it was #1 on like,
weird.
You know, who presuming there's some truth to it, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously they're promoting their own shows. They probably have a bias towards that, but like it was #1 on Netflix when I went, and I was like, is it? I have not heard of this at all.
Netflix is weird like that. Like that was a big thing with the strikes last summer, was that Netflix will not like disclose numbers whatsoever. Yeah. Like I feel like there was like a podcast that I listened to where I think it was like Maya Hawke from Stranger Things. She was just like, I don't know like how popular Stranger Things is. Like I think it's popular, but like she's like, I've never been, you know, she's like on the show, and she has never been told any details about like any sort of metric whatsoever. And
that's weird.
I feel like it has to do with royalties or well, whatever that's called, where it's like every time a thing gets aired, you know, like every time like an old episode of Seinfeld is on TV, Jerry Seinfeld gets some sort of like residuals.
That's the word. Yep.
And I think streaming, they're like, does that count as like a residual? Like how does that work? Every time something gets streamed, do you get money? And yeah, Netflix is very, very cagey about that. So it is funny that they could probably just arbitrarily place that at #1.
Yeah, who
and
knows?
They're like, what are you gonna do? Like, it's #1 because we say so. Like, what else? Like, that's it. We just said so. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really great. It's not an easy watch, but it's a quick watch at least. You just get through it. Like I said, like some of the episodes
want to watch it now.
Yeah, you should. I mean, if you don't have anything else new to watch, it's one that can get you through another week at least. You know?
Yeah, I guess I need that.
Because yeah, like I said, like some of the episodes are only like maybe less than 30 minutes even. And then, yeah. And then when you see, like, I went to like his Wikipedia after, and it logs like how much it was like over the course of like the stalking period that she sent him. It was like 41,000 emails, 350 hours of voicemails. And then she also sent him gifts and I don't know, other stuff. too. I don't like
all because he
text.
poured her a cup of tea.
That's like where it started.
He extended
I guess.
like one act of human decency, and she's just like, "I'm gonna marry you now."
It's essentially that's how it's like, you know. It's like he does that, and then she lights up, and she starts talking to him then, like at the bar, and he's very like, he's chatting with her too, as like, you know, being like nice and, you know, courteous, and I guess like a bartender would to anybody, even if they weren't having a bad day, right? That's kind of part of their job. But yeah, that's where he says like it started with like he gave her a cup of tea, and then she like that was like it. And there's even a part later where like they get into like this big altercation, and somebody's like, "What?" He's like, "What was that all about?" And then he's like, "I gave her a cup of tea."
It's Duds Miss Eve. This is the episode before.
Yeah, before another big one. Weird. Yeah. It's like we had these two normal we just had a month of duds, and then we got 2 just normal weeks, and then we got our big 150.
Our big special one.
But before that, we have another returning director, this time David Cronenberg, from 2005. We're going to watch A History of Violence.
Sick.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie in a while.
Same. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Tight.
Cool. Tight. So watch A History of Violence if you don't want to be spoiled before next week's episode, which comes out. These episodes come out every Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST on YouTube and Twitch in video form, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more in audio form. We also have social pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And with all that said, I don't know. I'm a boy. I'm a boy.
Are you sure?
I'm a boy. I'm a girl. I'm a boy. TJ, and with me as always.
As always, I just want a cup of coffee. I just want another cup of coffee. I like that guy at the beginning that no matter what, he just wanted another cup of coffee. Oh, bourbon coffee, whiskey coffee,
yeah, Irish coffee, yeah,
Irish coffee, yeah. And I'm Nick.
And
nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect. Yeah, I was thinking, yeah. Say it again. Might as well.